Okay, let us continue. Our next presenter, Paulius Astromskis, is technology law expert, working with tech companies and startups since 2008, and is sought for his deep business and legal knowledge in corporate, compliance, and product structure issues. He is deeply passionate and actively researching various interdisciplinary issues of law, economics, and ethics of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. Besides legal practice, Paulius is also deeply involved in legal tech industry. He is one of Legal Hackers Vilnius chapter founders and ambassador of European Legal Tech Association. The topic of his presentation is EU Artificial Intelligence Act, cool or creepy? So, Paulius, please start.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. Thank you for allowing me to share some I would say first-hand impressions regulation at EU-wide EU territories. So, and I'm asking myself, and I would like also to share with you some insights, trying to kind of answer the question, is that a cool regulation or is that something which we need to worry about, especially those who are working in the AI industry in whatever domains, but those who work in AI and one or another way related to European Union market should be aware and should be reading this new legislation and getting themselves prepared. So question is, okay, is that a cool initiative, or is that something to be worried about? So, but first of all, AI in itself is pretty cool, I would say. Since 2010, it has been like 10, 12 years. The major companies have started the race for AI, investing millions and billions of dollars, euros into acquiring developers, to working in their own labs on various applications. So, and besides these companies, of course, the venture capitalists are simply pouring money into AI industry, and well, this novelty comes together with a general, I would say, industry 4.0 initiatives and transformations, technological transformations of basically any sector. So, so seeing how these applications attract money, this is definitely a cool thing and a cool industry to be in. Of course, there are predictions that made by European Parliament that by 2025 these transitions of AI and robotics will create more than 60 million new jobs. There are many patent applications are coming in, and you can see the trend is rather explosive, I would say, in terms of AI patent applications. And as a lawyer, I did a simple count in Clarivate Web of Science database on new researches made in terms of artificial intelligence and regulation or law. And we can see that basically since the same 2010, the scholars, at least in legal sector, also gained a rather new and very interesting field of research. So, of course, this is just a legal domain, but I would say if we look at, at the technological papers or cybersecurity papers, we we will see more or like the same explosion of research, the same explosion on patents, the applications, and various other scholarly things. So seeing the money is coming in, that the research is gaining traction, and the practical applications through patenting of AI also gains explosive traction. So AI seems to be, as an industry, it seems to be very cool thing to be in, right? So the question is of course, okay, this is the new field, relatively new field, especially in practical domains. Theoretically, we know AI from Turing test and Turing research, but as the technologies developed, I would say since 2010, we see more and more practical applications and practical uses of AI technologies, especially with those money coming into the industry. So the question then is, okay, where does this leads us? Because it's a new industry, and as with anything which is new, there is a lot of uncertainty related to these applications. So question is, okay, where is the unknown unknowns or unknown knowns in terms of AI applications? And the worrying signals we might see, and worrying scenarios we might see, from various movies and scenarios that are developed in Hollywood. These are just my top three of my movies on AI. And of course, you can tell, well, this is just a science fiction, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the real life. But if we look at scenarios which are created by Charlie Brooker in Black Mirror series, these are more or less, relates to the world we are living in. And besides the science fiction part, the excellent question asked by Charlie Brooker is, okay, if technology is a drug and it actually feels like a drug, then what is precisely the side effects of being addicted to technologies? I'm being a lawyer, going a step further and asking, okay, if there are side effects, especially to the applications of artificial intelligence, then okay, are those side effects tolerable to the modern society, or is there some side effects which cannot be tolerated, and therefore how can we stop them? How can we regulate, or how can we control the unwanted side effects of this explosion of artificial intelligence? And of course, lawyers and especially regulators, the policymakers are the core gatekeepers in protecting society from unwanted side effects of technological addiction. So it's, looking maybe through some science fiction lens, but we can. And of course, the scholarly papers are also screaming about various Terminator scenarios, so to speak. But the question remains a bit creepy, okay, what would happen, in the future when AI technologies are getting more and more advanced, when they are learning more and more, or are trained on biased data, or having these black box problems and whatnot, kind of discrepancies in quality of AI. So when you think about these scenarios, this is where the chill effect comes, and we could say, okay, AI is a bit cool, but at the same time, if we let our fantasy explore the risk scenarios, well, that becomes a bit creepy at the same time. So good news is that lawyers and policymakers all across the world started developing various national AI policies and strategies. Most of them are, we're talking and are talking about the industry developments, that the investments which should be done in AI sector and etc. But that attention comes from realizing that AI and technological developments has the side effects, and this is one of the objects for regulation and control at a policy level. So this and actually this is a wonderful database to run by OECD. So just feel free to browse. But so yes, the policymakers across the globe started also looking at AI. The same happened in European Union. The first, well, at least the first, which was well known and well promoted initiative was in 2012. The group of scholars gathered in the Robolo initiative and Robolo project, and started talking and developing the rules for regulation and the new rules for robotics, including AI. And that led to European Parliament 2017 recommendations on new civil rules on robotics, which, well, I'm picking out the very first lines of introduction, and you can see that, and this is probably the single law of European Union, at least so far that I know, which started from science fiction scenarios, saying that look, we have these stories about Frankenstein, Prague Golem, or Karl Čapek, and this is the proof that humanity is thinking about building artificial intelligence or intelligent machines, and therefore these fantasies are already coming to the existence. So that having that strong introduction, the European Parliament recommended and gave mandate to European Commission to work on actual rules and regulations for robotics and AI industry. Well, as a side note, European Parliament even offered to create a new type of legal person for the most sophisticated AI machines, aside from natural humans and corporations. There was a proposal to have a third type of legal person, AI machines, but this came into the drawers, and actually wasn't catched up later on by European Commission. But anyway, getting back to the AI regulation initiatives, since in 2000, European Commission gathered the high-level expert group to answer these questions: how to regulate the modern technologies, the AI industry. And the very first publication, which had a huge impact on the further developments, and that led initially to current proposal for regulation, was ethic guidelines for trustworthy AI, which was published in 2019, and based on this ethical framework, the following groups have started looking at various aspects and applicabilities of AI. Hence came white paper for AI, that assessment list for trustworthiness of AI, various narrow scope applications like in law enforcement or civil liability, and etc. So within these 2 years, it is calculated that almost 1,215 institutions and individuals contributed to the analysis and proposal for artificial intelligence regulation. So looking at this roadmap and the speed and the scope of gathering of the brightest minds of European Union, this is of course it seems like a very cool initiative. I mean, to get such high-level experts from various fields, various universities, and all of these analysis and all of these papers are very interesting to read and to see the results. So this is definitely it seems like a cool initiative. Question is, okay, question which worries me and kind of creeps me out is whether it is on time. Seeing how far AI is already developed and how far technologies are already are embedded in our society, the question is, okay, whether the European Union is not too late with this initiative, especially seeing that it's only a proposal and it is still under the debate, and the timeline for implementation is 2023, 2025. So okay, next year, maybe the sooner the better. Next year is better than 2025. But seeing that it's just a beginning of various consultations and debates in Parliament, well, that might be a 2025 or even further. But anyway, so currently we have on our desktops the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, which considers not only machine learning, but also expert systems, statistical models, various machine learning approaches, supervised and supervised reinforced learning, deep learning, etc. So basically, this act covers, provides the definitions of AI and related terminology, and this is of course a cool stuff, but it is also a rather wide in application and wide in attempt to regulate the industry. So looking at these worries on AI scenarios, the Terminator scenarios, and seeing this gathering of the brightest minds and the results of it, this is of course it seems like a cool thing, but there is always but. And this might be expressed by the quote from Cicero, which coined the well-known sentence, well, at least for lawyers, that the more there are laws, the less there is justice. So the laws, regulations, and freedom is on two opposing sides of our well-being. The more there is regulations, the more control, the less freedom we are having. So question is which kind of gets the coin into the creepy side is okay, regulation is good, but is it not going too far in terms of freedom of business, freedom of creativity, and freedom of exploring the new technologies and applying new technologies to our modern life? So the question is, okay, the laws are okay, but what about our freedoms? So this is yet to be answered in the future. But looking going further into the actual application of AI Act, so territorically, basically everyone who works in European Union or locates the technologies in European Union, or even if they don't work or don't have any tech part in EU, if the output is produced or EU citizens are targeted as consumers, the law applies. So the scope is more or less the same as GDPR, and therefore the ultimate decision for those who want more freedom in development of AI is simply go out of European Union to some place else and neither work with EU citizens nor have here technologies nor have here any establishments and etc. So this is rather broad application, which like a few weeks ago, Facebook said, well, if you will not allow us to transfer data to the United States, we are going out of European Union and we will leave you without Facebook and Instagram. Well, European Union said, okay, what a pity, right? So the question is, okay, with AI, Facebook is and Instagram maybe a business venture, but it is more or less for getting in touch, and there are many different ways of getting in touch with the relatives, right? But so maybe not big harm will be done to the overall market, but what about AI applications and the variety of those, or the varieties of scopes of those applications? But this is not what worries me. I'm as a consumer, I'm okay that the things and the technologies which I use or my children uses would be regulated and would be controlled, simply because I'm a bit afraid of unwanted consequences. But what worries me a little bit, and I would say in terms of this presentation, creeps me out, is the exceptions to AI Act. And most of them is that AI systems developed or used exclusively for military purposes are beyond their controls put in with this AI Act. So okay, that peaceful technologies will be regulated. The war technologies will not be regulated, at least with this ethical framework. Of course, for military, there are military laws, there are humanitarian laws, and etc. But still, if we look at any type of Terminator scenario, it comes with more or less military aspects to that. So of course, militia and wars are in itself creepy, but if you add AI technologies into the military context, well, that creeps me even more. So this is one of the things which kind of gets me on a side of the creepy side of AI Act for European Unions. Okay, so let's go further to what's inside the Act. And inside there is a risk-based approach to artificial intelligence. And it says the purpose is to set some harmonized rules for European Union, which is okay. There are certain applications which are prohibited, and I will go briefly discuss all of them. But some of the unacceptable risks are simply prohibited. There are certain uses of AI which are labeled as a high-risk AI applications, and therefore there are very strict compliance requirements and risk management compliance, the risk management rules, which I also will present shortly. And there are some, limited risk or minimal risk with certain transparency rules and codes of conduct and other soft law type of approach. And of course, the AI sets the market monitoring and surveillance board and practice, which I will also present you shortly. So going further, let's look at what is prohibited. And within the prohibited practices, we have various subliminal manipulations and subliminal techniques, exploitations of vulnerabilities of children, elderly people, and other vulnerable parts of our society. Social scoring practices are prohibited, and biometric identification in public spaces in general terms. So, of course, all of these strict prohibitions comes with certain exceptions. Let's say for subliminal techniques, there is a narrow approach that it is prohibited if these techniques are harming you or opposed to harm physically or physiologically. The same with vulnerabilities and social scoring. Biometric identification has exceptions for justice reasons and investigation of crimes and etc. But I will not go deeper in here. But so this kind of, if you look broadly, it seems like, okay, I don't want, any AI system to kind of manipulate with my decisions, manipulate my choices, but at the same time, what as a lawyer creeps me out is the vagueness of definitions, the lack of explanations of the scope of these applications, because basically any type of AI which is in a public use to one or other way kind of aims to influence and there are hundreds of MIT ninjas just sitting and working to get your attention and to get your engagement ratios in the platforms. And talking about subliminal techniques, well, there is a well-known experiment where I think it was United Kingdom, where they played German music. So German wine sales went up. They played French music. The French wines sales went up. So and modern science has the 37 known sensory inputs across 7 broad categories like visual, auditory, touching, tasting, smelling, balance and movement, body awareness, and other sensors of human being, which one or other way can be influenced. So if we are looking at, the subliminal techniques which are broad enough, so what with the Facebook puts us in some information bubble, and that could lead, to certain choices. So should we kind of prohibit Facebook scoring and prioritizing and profiling, or Google profiling, or where does it goes, and how wide is these harsh prohibitions, right? So the vagueness of these prohibitions is something which worries me a little bit. Another thing which comes with prohibitions is the simple correlation with prohibited things or prohibited practices and gangsterism. I took an example just for illustration on the drug policies, and it is well proven, and there are data to support that strict prohibition, ultra prohibition, incentivize illegal markets, incentivize gangsterism, and of course, whatever is prohibited has a bit different price tag, and there are always people who are willing to get that extra risk for extra profits, despite the laws, despite the prohibitions. So, and knowing from the cyberspace and cybersecurity lessons, well, it is a bit difficult to catch cyber criminals, right? It's not that easy due to problems with international the international scope, context, the different laws in different countries, the so-called jurisdictional fragmentation here is a problem number one in terms of unlimited cyberspace. So the question is, okay, whether these prohibited practices will result in some illegal market, and will there be evil labs developing these prohibited applications. So this is one of the questions which comes together with prohibition practices, and which actually worries me more than the regulated market and supervised market. So this is something which once again is on the side of a creepy one. So looking further, we have certain applications which are labeled as a high risk application. So basically all of those who need a CE certification, conformity assessments are under this scope, and some specific fields on biometric identification, critical infrastructure management and operation, the education, employment, law enforcement, migration, and whatnot. And here you can see that even if AI part is just a component of the product, not a standalone product, it still applies, and a high risk label still applies to the all product, right? So these practices and these uses of AI is allowed, but this also comes with strict regulation on compliance and risk management. And here we have just, I'm showing just an outline of various requirements for compliance. So the high-risk AI systems will need to have the risk management system, will need to have a precise record keeping, accuracy and cybersecurity, high-level requirements, data, especially the training data supervision. Everything will have to be, documented up to the, nuts and bolts, and of course shared with the supervisors. Transparency and human oversight. So all of these requirements are rather strict in their content. So looking at these, I would say, well, this is good. I mean, for high-risk artificial intelligence systems, the legislators is doing everything to protect me. So this is definitely a cool thing, right? But let's take a look at just a few of these. For example, the risk management. The ISO standard for AI intelligence just came out last month. And it's just a proposal. It's just the draft, which is yet to be approved and implemented. Of course, ISO is not the only standard and not the only methodology to have a risk management system to coined up, but yet specifically for narrow AI sector, the standards are just under development. So there is no practice, there is no specific practice, there is no use cases. There is no regulatory guidance or whatnot to help the risk managers to manage those risks. And speaking about AI and technology developments, well, in a scale, scope, and complexity of current technological developments and transformations, it's unlike anything the humankind has experienced before. So this is there are a lot of unknowns in the field, right? So the question is, okay, how can we deal with that? Who will be doing those risk management compliance tasks? And there is also a requirement for cybersecurity, but let's take a look at what's going on with cybersecurity in the field. On a left side, you see it, excellent visualization and website for cybersecurity incidents, only 10-year gap. And you see at the bottom is what was going on 10 years, before 10 years, and it's a clear sky. There's only mild cybersecurity incidents. Take a look at what's going on now at the top. I mean, it simply creeps me out because also technologies are developing. It seems like the evil labs are developing even more. And so the world has been hacked, and the chances of getting caught are very small, and there's no way to stop that. And we can also see, on the left side that cybersecurity is very concentrated, and there are some countries which just get started to developing the policies. So, and in terms of that, let's take a look. We looked at the world's best universities, like 1,500 of them, looking for master degrees in law and technologies. There are basically no specialized programs for law students which are preparing lawyers for tech field. So there is gap in cybersecurity, there is gap in talent, and I actually don't know who's will be doing it. I'm already finalizing. I know my time is up, so let me just be very, very short with this. So what creeps me out in this? So who will be doing these harsh compliance things? There are no talents, there are no standards, there are just requirements. So we will have some kind of paperwork, but when the real effect will come, well, nobody knows. So for limited and low risk AI systems, we have a transparency obligations, codes of conduct, which I don't know about you, but through my 20 years in practice, I simply don't believe in ethical obligations of businesses. So the requirement to put a code of conduct somewhere online, I don't think that will work at all. So, but that's maybe my opinion. Of course, the good thing is that we will have European Artificial Intelligence Board who will support with all the guidelines, all the sandboxes, and etc. So the support is coming. Question is, of course, when. The timing is an issue here, and having the timing issue, the fines for non-compliance are rather big. So overall what creeps me out is a high price tag for mistakes, low talents, no guidance, and very in some places vague terminology used in the AI Act. So this is my pros and cons, cool and creepy stuff. It's what I wanted to share. So sorry for maybe taking more time than it was expected, but this is a good
Big
topic.
Thanks to Paulius. One very short question. Will, according to the law, European companies, institutions, etc., allowed to take part in developing AI-based products or services that will be prohibited in Europe in third countries, for example, in China, legally?
That's a good question. If there are any tech part or consumers or any establishments in European Union, so definitely not. If I'm as a specialist consulting some North Korean government on evil AI without targeting the EU market, so I don't think I don't think it will be prohibited for me to do my knowledge sharing. So as long as it doesn't touch in any way European Union or European markets, I would say there is no prohibition to consult or to work or develop with anyone. So yeah.
Okay.
But this is yet
yet to be decided. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, again, big thanks to Paulius for his presentation. We're moving forward.